This is the Bottom Line Sports Show with Gerald Brown and Rick Mahorn.
Imagine you trade a Chet Holmgren for a Giannis Antetokounmpo.
These guys are athletic as you know what, and you go like, oh my gosh, where's the fundamentals? Where's the pass first mentality? That's not in the league anymore.
And now here's your host, Gerald Brown and Rick Mahorn.
Back in the garden, you see where I'm at. Gerald Brown here. Rick Mahorn, he is coaching in the Big Three. So the big fella is he's here in spirit, but again, he's focused on the Big Three. But you know what? This is an honor, and this is an individual that's one of my favorite people, man, to do a show. Always on point, longtime NBA columnist, journalist, and Sirius XM NBA analyst, does it all. The legendary Mr. Mitch Lawrence joins me here. And Mitch, more than ever.
There you go.
More than ever. How are you, my friend? How are you?
Oh, I'm sorry. I missed that. I'm fine. I'm telling you, I'm great. I just witnessed the Knicks winning a title for the first time in 53 years, a day that a lot of us thought under Jim Dolan we would never, ever see. And they had a fantastic playoff run with Jalen Brunson, who a lot of people had doubts about. And I'll tell you what, I live in the Dallas-Fort Worth area now. I haven't been in New York. And the Maverick fans are so mad about Luka Doncic. They're so mad that Mark Cuban sold the team to the Adelsons, excuse me. And they're really, really mad now that a guy who they could have re-signed for about $60 million, they let go, and he basically took a team despite all the doubting, took a team to the NBA championship to break a 53-year drought. The Mav fans are beside themselves. They love Jalen Brunson. They wanted Jalen Brunson to stay. That's another Mark Cuban is having the longest offseason in the history of the world. How are you, my friend?
I tell you this, the Mavericks better hope the Dallas Cowboys have a decent season, because it just seems like it goes from bad to worse with all the things that's happening with them. God. But you mentioned about that, and Mitch, you've seen a lot of the hard times of the Knicks. You saw a lot of
lean years.
Yes, a lot of the hard times and stuff. What was it like for you when that moment where Mike Breen and the clock goes off and you see the joy and jubilation? What was that like for you, Mitch?
Well, I felt good for guys like you. My best friend, who wasn't a media guy, who was passed away about 15 years ago, huge Knicks fan. There were other people I grew up with, and I was a Knicks fan when I was a kid. I was a Knicks fan in 1970, actually a few years before, and then 73. So I'm just happy for all you guys. I mean, listen, I had to endure, when you cover the Knicks and it's the James Dolan regime, it's a very tough cover because they made like kind of different. I'm complaining because I'm out of it, but even at the time, it was just painful in terms of, how the restrictions on the media, et cetera. And then, but really it was painful because Dolan, move after move after move, and this went on for years. He couldn't get it right. I always gave him credit, as everybody did, for spending the money. He always spent the money. He spent luxury tax before luxury tax was a big deal, way back in the day when the Lakers and Portland or the Bulls were the three teams that put into the pot. Everybody was taken off of them. But Jim Dolan made a lot of bad hires, as we've seen. And I honestly thought, when he hired Leon Rose, what am I going to think? Here's a guy who was Carmelo's agent. Later, Carmelo Anthony's agent. Gerald, later, he's representing Karl Anthony Towns. And I'm like, you really want to hire an agent? I know Bob Myers did a great job at Golden State, but who knew that Leon Rose would make move after move after move to build this type of team? He didn't have any track record, right? We didn't know. So Worldwide West, they come in. What a phenomenal job they did. And, Jim Dolan finally gets his championship, But boy, oh boy, the years of misery for Knicks fans, all my people, all my friends, and the older generation who had to endure all the stuff under Phil Jackson, Isaiah Thomas, Donnie Walsh, Scott Layden. Ever since Dolan ran off Dave Checketts in 2001, that started the big drop, because then the talent was leaving and the people Dolan was bringing in, they didn't cut it in New York. And I also had my doubts about Mike Brown. He had never coached in a place like New York. And how about the job that Mike Brown did and his staff following? That's a tough act to follow. I had my doubts about Mike following Tom Thibodeau. I didn't listen. Mike Brown's been around. Other people would call him a retread, a recycled guy. He's had a million jobs. What's he ever done? He's their fifth or sixth choice. You knew they wanted Jason Kidd. They loved Jason Kidd. And they wanted, after that, they talked to Ime Udoka in Houston, and they talked to Billy Donovan in Chicago, and they talked to Quinn Snyder, and all these guys who were under contract, Gerald. All the Knicks did for those guys was get them extensions. As they kept on saying no. And finally, they land on Mike Brown. So I had my doubts about Leon early on. I had my doubts about Mike Brown. Everything came together. What a playoff run. 13 wins in a row. I mean, I remember one of our last shows, you were talking about, we got to get LeBron James. We got to
get – I said it.
You want LeBron? You need LeBron James now? You don't want LeBron James. No,
not this hour.
I always got to give you credit, because you come up with the great moves. And now, though, look at it. LeBron James, the Knicks fans would be pinching themselves if you told them a year ago, we're not going to be at a point where we need a guy like LeBron James to be the guy to put us over the top. They'd be like, what? Well, it happened. It happened. Amazing, amazing season.
Yeah, it's funny because I think of Mike Brown. When I think of what you said about Mike Brown, it is so eerily similar to Joe Torre when he came on with the Yankees. Very, very similar. Wasn't the top guy.
Right.
He was a retread. And really the bar was so low. But Mitch.
But how about this? How about it's really similar to Mark Jackson, Steve Kerr. Mark Jackson did a lot to get the Warriors going. He never got out of the second round. But when Steve Kerr came in, that he did things to make the offense better, et cetera. But Mark kind of established things. But the interesting thing is, Steve Kerr to this day is asked about Mark Jackson's impact. And Steve Kerr is always a guy who tips his cap. He's a class guy, Steve, and he's always willing to say, Mark Jackson got things rolling here to make it easier for me. I haven't heard a lot of that on Tom Thibodeau's behalf. A lot of people are killing Tom. A lot of people are saying, thank God we got rid of Tom. The mayor of New York, though, gave Tom a shout-out yesterday in his speech at City Hall. So I was kind of happy because Tom did a lot of good things. Player development, got that call. He came in, the Knicks were, a 20-win team, 22-win team, steadily built them going forward, took them to a point. All right, they made this decision. He didn't have much of a bench. They did upgrade their bench. Leon got better, right? He brought in Alvarado, for instance. But listen, Mike Brown did the job. I just wish when Mike Brown was saying his thank yous on the podium after they clinched it in San Antonio, what a moment that was. I never thought I'd see Jim Dolan getting the trophy. But anyway, there's Mike Brown thanking people. It would have been nice if he would have tipped his cap to Tom right there. But all right, he can always do that. But that's what it reminded me of. Besides the Torrey Buck Showalter thing, you had Mark Jackson and then Steve Kerr. And Steve Kerr, of course, as we know, had a chance to coach the Knicks, pick Golden State. I think he picked the right situation with Steph Curry. What about you?
Yeah, I think that worked out really well for him. But what's interesting, it goes back to the whole thing of just timing. It seemed like it was the right time for the Knicks because here's the thing, Mitch. I sat down, and one night I sat down and I looked at all of the NBA champions from the 80s, probably 86 on to currently, and the top three scorers on their team. And there was a recipe for their success. They drafted a guy who turned out to be one of their top three scorers. They traded for a guy, and they had a guy either free agency. So those three guys, those three categories right there were covered. And if you go back, I think with the exception, and actually it was including the Pistons with Tayshaun Prince. I think that anomaly is up. But the Knicks were the anomaly. They didn't draft a guy that was one of their top 3 scorers.
No.
They traded, free agency, all that stuff there. Right. So it was just a perfect storm, you know?
And to add to that, the perfect storm continued into the playoffs because you didn't have Indiana with Halliburton. They're out of the picture the whole time. The Celtics took a step back without Tatum. Detroit obviously was a 60-win team, but we knew going into the playoffs, how are they going to score the ball? They don't have anybody but, Cade. They needed that second, third guy. They really didn't have that. Duran was a mess. And then you saw the other teams in the East. So the Knicks end up going against they're the 3 seed. So they have Atlanta in the first round, Philly in the second round, a 7 seed, and then they get Cleveland in the third round. That is a great road. You talk about a favorable path. And listen, you have to play the teams in front of you. I get it. Didn't have to play a 1 seed, didn't have to play a 2 seed. They were probably better than those teams. But this is where it's interesting because all the Knicks fans now are talking about this, the greatest playoff run and blah, blah. Hey, it went 16-3. They went 13 in a row. That is, I don't care if that's incredible.
Very.
In 1970, I have to point this out. In 1970, their path was this. First round, Baltimore, Wes Unseld, who is at that time already an MVP with Earl Monroe. They beat them. Second round, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, then Lou Alcindor. I don't think he had changed name. But anyway, Kareem in round 2. They beat in 5. And then in the third round, obviously in the finals, they get the Lakers with Elgin Baylor, Jerry West, Will Chamberlain. The names I've mentioned, now their opponents versus what these Knicks had to face in their playoff run, the quality is different. And this leads me to one more thing. Willis Reed. I love Walt Frazier. And Walt Frazier, to me, class guy. I had many dealings with him when I was the NBA columnist Daily News for a couple of decades. And Walt, terrific guy. We all know that.
Yes.
People are now have been putting him ahead of Willis Reed consistently for this year, 1970. That's not the case. Willis is the only Knick, Gerald, to be the MVP of the NBA, and it happened in the championship season, 1970. And if you go back and you look at those playoff teams he played against, where he played against Wes Unseld, he outplayed him. He outplayed Kareem. He averaged against Kareem 28 and 12. And against Wilt before he got hurt, obviously, and then Walt took over in Game 7. Clyde with the greatest Game 7 we've ever seen. He outplayed Wilt. So Willis is the MVP. He's got those 3 legendary players he had to play against. And Willis Reed at that time was really the focal point. But a lot of Knick fans now, I think it's a little revisionist history. And I love Walt Frazier, but I always thought it was Willis 1, Walt 2. And on my Knick Mount Rushmore, I got Willis 1, Walt 2. I got Jalen Brunson now 3, Patrick 4, because he won the title.
Yes,
the Finals MVP. Look at now, Gerald. I know you're giving me that look.
The first person came to my head was Bernard. If he doesn't get hurt.
Well, but here's the thing. He did get hurt.
He got hurt. But
here's the thing about Brunson. Here's the thing about Brunson. Brunson, besides he had an amazing playoff stretch. He had some ups and downs against the Spurs. Game 5, when he took over, 15 points in the fourth quarter on the road clincher, and all the other series. I know OG's play in Game 4. The block when De'Aaron Fox screwed up and took that ball in, and then the tip in. Those are iconic moments. But Jalen Brunson deserved that Finals MVP and ending a 53-year streak where he's the top player. He closes it out. He has a ring. No, Patrick's got to be a little below him now, I think. And I think Bernard's below that. I think Jalen has worked his way in. Now, you're going to say to me, hey, he's only been a Knick for 4 or 5 years, and Patrick was a Knick. But he got it done.
Yeah.
And the other thing, too, Gerald, is this. When you don't win for 53 years, there is an enormous weight on your shoulders. And to do that in New York, people don't understand. You and I understand. Not everybody can come in and do that type of thing.
That's
right.
You're
I mean,
right.
Carmelo Anthony came in. He wanted to win in New York. He couldn't get it done. He couldn't get out of the second round in New York. You've had other guys through the years. So you always have your kind of, can Jalen Brunson get this done? Man, he got it done. And the Knicks were not favored in the finals. The Spurs were, even though the Knicks were on a roll. The Spurs had beaten Oklahoma City, the number one seed, the defending champs. We all thought, at least I thought, Victor would have a huge series. But I'm giving Jalen the nod right now. I know Patrick had a terrific career. He never had those other players around him like Jalen does. But, man, you can't argue with Jalen Brunson's success. And what a great free agent. I know Shaq talked about he now thinks that's the greatest free agent signing. I still have to give a little advantage to Shaq when the Lakers got Shaq. Lakers got, I mean, they got a bunch of titles, a bunch of trip to the finals. I know they had Kobe.
Yeah.
But they landed the big guy out of Orlando, and that changed NBA history.
What about LeBron in Miami?
Well, he's enough. I think Pat Riley would agree with you. But he's got to be below Shaq because, all right, he went to 4 straight titles, but he won 2.
Yeah.
Shaq went to 4 finals. Shaq and Kobe went to, 4 out of 5 years, and they lost to the Pistons. But the 3 in a row, they're the last team to three-peat, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, and, you saw the year that Shaq had in 2000. He should have been the first unanimous MVP ever. Fred Hickman, though, at CNN was the one vote when everybody, I voted. Shaq was phenomenal that year, Gerald, because defensively, he was a shot block. He was like both ends of the court. He dominated to both ends. I mean, he was unbelievable. And Fred Hickman was the one guy. And you know the story that the league, when they got the ballots in, and it was Shaq's missing one to be the first unanimous MVP ever. Jordan never did that. Bird never did that. All these guys, Magic, they called Fred Hickman up and they said, would you like to change your vote? And Fred Hickman said, nope. Because he knew he'd be the one guy. And to this day, Shaq talks about the guy in Atlanta. He calls him the guy in Atlanta, robbing him out of becoming the first unanimous MVP. You got to love Shaq.
Yeah. I want to ask you this. I want to go back to when you mentioned about when Willis Reed and them beat the Bucks then with Kareem. Was Oscar still on that team?
Oscar a year before. That was a year before Oscar came in. Now, here's the funny thing. In 71, after the Knicks have won it in 70, in 71, you get Baltimore with Wes Unseld and Earl Monroe in the finals against Kareem because they sent the Bucks to play in the Western Conference. So those two teams who the Knicks had beaten in the first and second round, they met in the finals. That's when they had Oscar Robertson. But the year they beat Kareem, I looked this up, he was not on that team. So he came in that following year, and Oscar got himself that ring. And man, oh man, I always love talking to Oscar Robertson. You know why, Gerald? Because Oscar Robertson, you talk about, he never sugarcoated anything. And when I called him up, when Michael Jordan was starting to get big in the mid-late 80s, I called Oscar up. There's all this Jordan. Oh, my God, he's the next big thing. He hadn't won yet, right? He hadn't gotten past the bad boys and the Pistons. I called Oscar up and I said, Oscar, there are people out there who really want to know how you would be able to guard Michael Jordan. And Oscar said, everybody's got it wrong, Mitch. He said, the question isn't that. The question is, could Michael Jordan cover me? How you like that? Because Oscar, this is now Oscar 20 years after his career's over. He ain't taking a backseat to nobody, all right? That's Oscar Robertson. You got to love that guy.
Hey, look, I want to ask you this, and I want to move on from the Knicks because you know what? We got the draft right around the corner, but you know what? We still have this hovering over us, these potential trades. We got free agency.
Yeah.
And I want to work backwards because obviously Giannis is the big fish that's out there. But I want to get your thoughts on Ja Morant. Now, Ja Morant has been a name that's out there. It seems that Memphis has really decided with moving Bane and Jaren Jackson Jr., they're moving on in a different direction. And as we look at what's constructed right now, hasn't been that much said about Ja Morant. But what do you think in terms of him and being in potentially either I don't know, another team, LA or Sacramento and all this stuff. What do you make of his market?
How about the Timberwolves for him? Minnesota with Anthony Edwards. Listen, this is a bit for if you're the Grizzlies. The problem for you is you've got Ja, who's not playing at the level he played at a few years ago. He's got all kinds of baggage off the court. We know about that. You're also trading for his father because they come as kind of a package deal, right? That could be tough. So, listen, I think Memphis is probably going to move on, but I think right now that's a low trade value. And I think they probably want to, you bring him back, you play him. Maybe he plays lights out. Maybe he gets back to all NBA form because he is he's a liability too on the defensive end. I mean, we all know he's got tremendous talent, but there are other things that seem to have held him back, that have dropped his value. I think they're going to move on, but I think they're going to want to make a killing because if you're going to trade a guy like that, you're not going to give him away.
But Mitch, I don't think the market yields that. I think that, you know what, when you look at these other teams like Sacramento, and I don't think they're clamoring for a guy that's out there like that. Because here's the thing, Mitch, one thing aside from the off the court things, I don't think his game has gotten better from what he was when he came in. He was a high flyer, was a lot of oohs and ahs, but he has regressed. Or better yet, he has just stayed in a space where he's a guard that can't really shoot from the perimeter. So he's not physically strong enough to take the pounding of going to the basket. So it's a lot of limitations there. And honestly, as these draft classes keep coming in, I think it's just further decreasing his value. So I don't see where Memphis could fool themselves to say you can get a king's ransom to get Ja Morant. I don't think it has any validity that much.
Well, how do you build a player's value up? You play him and you hope he plays just, hey, this Ja Morant, wow, he's starting to look like that guy 3-4 years ago, right? And then maybe you can pull the trigger then. But I think you're right. Everything you said is dead on, man. Dead on. And that's tough. That's a tough spot for Memphis. Remember that draft, you had Zion, then you had Ja, then you had RJ Barrett. And when the Knicks were supposed to get the top pick, everybody's like, oh, man, they're going to miss out on Zion. When it started out, it was like, oh, they're missing out on Ja. Now they're not missing out on anybody because RJ helped them get OG Anunoby.
Yes.
And I'm telling you that. But you're right about Ja. We'll see how it happens. We'll see how it plays out. But I tell you, I think Minnesota might be the place.
But is he going to be able to, again, you're going to have to be able to shoot from the perimeter. And look, him staying in Memphis, the issues that him and the head coach had, and remember, they shut him down, Mitch. They shut him down. I don't know how you can bring him back unless he has a come to Jesus moment and just try to figure it out. But I mean, the longer he stays there, the way his game is currently constructed, the more his value decreases. And honestly, he's going to have a really, really significant jump to go somewhere. I mean, Sacramento would be ideal for him, but it's a question of how much he will develop in terms of just really taking that next step. He hasn't.
Well, good points all. Well, it's going to be interesting because he is still, I mean, it's an amazing, it's one of those stories which you hate to see where a guy starts on a trajectory where you think, man, he's going to be all NBA for the next 5-6 years. And then it's been a downward trajectory for various reasons. So I don't know what the answer is, but Memphis has to figure something out.
What do you think about this? We've been hearing about Giannis since last year, Mitch. And honestly, I'm really believing the longer this thing takes, they're starting to get cold feet, and in terms of now trying to figure out how we can make this happen. We heard the governor, Jimmy Haslam, come out and say, hey, we're going to get this thing done before the draft. And Mitch, they moved the draft up this year. So it's going to be on Tuesday, right? So with the draft coming up, I don't see this. And I mean, we've heard Miami. I don't think the Miami package is that great. I mean, I had said in our intro to the show that I thought Chet Holmgren, if I'm Oklahoma City, you got pretty much, I think, 14 guys guaranteed contracts. Holmgren's going to make a lot of money. And I know that obviously you take, set aside the fact it's how he performed in the conference finals. But if you got a guy that's there and you throw in a treasure trove of picks, I think it's a win-win situation for both of them. But the biggest thing is, wherever Giannis goes, he's going to be looking to sign that extension. And you can't give that much value away. And if the guy's not really going to sign that extension. And honestly, once again, I don't know. Again, it's a very slippery slope. How do you see this thing playing out with Giannis as we get closer and closer to the draft?
Well, it certainly seems like the Bucks are holding out for King's ransom or something close. And that's the thing about Miami. When they were going after Lillard, when they were going after, whoever over the last, 5, 6, 7 years, it's always like they never have enough assets. They never have that young player. To me, Tyler Hero, it's not getting it done.
No,
not getting it done. Now, you raised an interesting thing about Oklahoma City. The Chet Holmgren thing that happened in the conference finals against Victor, that has to be very, very disconcerting to Sam Presti and those guys. Can you actually go forward and think, forget about the other bigs he has to play. If we have to get past San Antonio now in a conference finals, how much can we count on this guy? Is Victor in his head? I mean, he was destroyed in that series. He looked awful, paying top dollar. Gerald, that doesn't, to me, I don't know if Chet Holmgren can come back next year and even play at a draw against Victor, let alone be better. You might be thinking now, if you're Oklahoma City, if we got to get past Victor Wembanyama, we might need to make a move for a Giannis. But you're right. Does he want to re-sign in Oklahoma? Does he want to take that money from the Thunder? I don't know. Boston, you hear? That's very intriguing with Jaylen Brown. We've heard that come up. Is there another team? Is there a team that's going to come out of left field and try to get Giannis? I really don't know. But this thing is dragging on. I think it's over for Giannis. And I'll tell you, in Milwaukee, and I agree a little bit with Michael Wilbon, who caused a little stir last week, talking about he's given up on Giannis in terms of a lot of us think, or a lot of people think about Giannis as the Giannis from 5-6 years ago.
Yeah.
When the Bucks won in 71, then they had 50 years. It was almost a Knick-like thing, drought. And then he put on a show going down 0-2 in that series against Phoenix, and he come back, they win 4 straight. He scored 50 points. He had amazing plays. He's not that player anymore. He's not that player. And so he's lost 9 out of his last 10 playoff games. He hasn't produced. He gets hurt. He's going to bring his family along. You got to get roster spots for his brother. They got enough Antetokounmpos on that team to open a diner in Jersey, right? I mean, Gerald, all right. So there's a lot that goes into it. But at the end of the day, are they going to cave to Miami? I think there are other teams involved. I've heard a situation. I don't know who flowed this out. I guess Detroit's looking at Hero, get involved in the 3-way so they get themselves the score they need after Cade Cunningham. Now, I don't know what else the package would be. I don't know if Boston would actually give up Jaylen Brown in that situation. Jaylen Brown plays more than Giannis does now.
Yeah.
In terms of injuries. I'm not saying at the top of their game, at the very top where Giannis isn't hurt, Giannis, over Jaylen Brown, okay, I'll give that to you. But in terms of just playing and being on the court, availability, Giannis has a lot of problems. That's still the number one story in the NBA right now. It's going to be until it's finally resolved.
Yeah.
Here's the other thing. You know this too. Are you a team that's going to give up so many assets for Giannis that now you're looking at a 45-win team with Giannis on the court? You want to do that?
Yeah.
You can't do that. You have to have enough where Giannis can you're in the playoffs and you're a title contender, right? That's a hard thing to figure out, hard thing to navigate all the way.
Yeah, and the biggest thing is that the way Giannis's game is constructed, he's kind of like Ja. He's not a guy that's going to be able to close a game because he's a liability at the free throw line. And right. That still is something there where, again, you mentioned about that championship run. I think Drew Holiday had a significant impact in that series and helping them win that. Then
Chris Middleton.
Chris Middleton, Lopez. Yeah. It was a lot of guys that allowed him to be able to do the things he could do. But then, obviously Lillard never worked out. So to have a guy that you're going to trade for, he's got to be. He's not a guy that's to stand alone and say, "Hey, he's a closer," because down the stretch he gets fouled. He's not a guy that can hit free throws.
He's iffy.
On a consistent basis and stuff. Yep. I want to ask you this. You mentioned about Minnesota. Kyrie Irving, yes. Kyrie didn't play last year. Obviously, we're looking at the direction of what Dallas is going. Yeah. And look, are they any closer to getting to a championship? In all likelihood, not, because obviously San Antonio's there.
Yeah.
What about a Kyrie Irving being possibly moved to somewhere like a Minnesota? Yeah. I like that more than I like Ja in Minnesota, if you will.
Now, Kyrie is supposedly everything we hear down here in Dallas is a couple things. He's on schedule to return it. Now, I don't know if it's going to be, if he's ready for the season, he may be. But Masai Ujiri, who's the new sheriff in town for the Mavericks, he had that run in Toronto where he built that championship team. He made the Kawhi Leonard trade. And then after that, things really got rough for him because there were a lot of bad moves and there was just an exodus of talent out of Toronto. But anyway, Mavericks bring him in. He's got to hire a coach. And then he wants to build around Cooper Flag, okay, which makes sense. Now, Kyrie's older. It's a different trajectory. But I think what you're going to have to do, like with Jean Morant, get Kyrie on the court, get him playing, showing people he's fine off that knee. He's back to being, if not the old Kyrie, something close to it. Then you can build the trade value up. And I think Masai is interested in that because after this draft, I believe, he doesn't have a lot of picks for the next 3-4 years, if I'm correct in that. They gave those away. So, yeah, I think a guy like Kyrie, as long as he proves he's like near the old Kyrie, he may not be, but he might be close. He is getting older, and he can still score, get you one-on-one hoops at the end of games. Let me tell you something. That might be the place for Minnesota to bring him in. And I think any team that Dallas is going to deal with, Dallas is going to be looking for, we need picks besides a player for Kyrie or some combination. But I think they'd be interested in assets to get guys, now younger guys, to build with Cooper Flag. Because Cooper Flag and Kyrie, there's like big age difference. And Kyrie's part of this past here now. Mm-hmm. They did get to the conference finals. I mean, he's still a hell of a player, hell of a talent. The big question is, what's he going to be like when he gets back on the court? But you got to agree with this, Gerald. There would be a lot of teams if he shows he's the old Kyrie. And he's changed. Hey, in Dallas, he's been a model citizen. He's no more the guy who goes off the reservation on you in Brooklyn. He says, crazy stuff and clean whatever. Right now, you take him as long as he can contribute, and he would help a lot of teams who are looking to get over the top. I don't know. I haven't really thought a lot about other teams in Minnesota, but Minnesota's one of those teams that has to do something because they got the Spurs, they got Oklahoma City, Denver's still kind of there. So, that's the team that I'm looking at. And in the East, who needs a big-time point guard? Who could help you out? It's almost like this. If Milwaukee could somehow, right? If you could somehow keep Giannis and know that you could somehow get Kyrie. Could you imagine that Kyrie? But the timing's off.
Yeah, but
they got to get rid of Giannis now, and Dallas can't do anything with Kyrie because we haven't seen him play. But that's the type of thing. Who's that team? Scoring point, late game closer, clutch, and on and on.
Yeah,
and he's still a guy if he can be. He can.
Hey, Mitch, I got a couple more before I let you get on out in. And I got to say that
I thought we only had 15 minutes. Now you're over. You're going overtime.
But hey, Mitch, I don't get this too often from you, my friend, because you know what? You go back into history and it makes so much sense. I just want to ask you about this. I had heard some rumblings, and the thing is, the way Dylan Harper played in the NBA Finals, I know it's a sample size.
Yeah.
But, Mitch, I've been hearing some things that, look, the way he performed,
yes,
De'Aaron Fox is there. How much longer do you think that he could keep that seat warm before they make the move to Harper? And if so, is there a situation potentially, can you keep him satisfied in that reserve role?
Well, Mitch Johnson had a horrible, horrible finals. You saw it. I saw it. He didn't call timeout when Victor had the ball at the end of game 2, and he threw it off the back of Castle. Remember that turnover? They should have gone overtime at the worst. It could have been 1-1. Instead, they're down 0-2. And then the 29-point collapse in game 4, where De'Aaron just makes a terrible judgment play. And it's funny, John Calipari said he had a high ankle sprain. He was still hurt. And Jerry Stackhouse, who Frank and I had on the starting lineup, Jerry Stackhouse came in and talked about that. And I'm like, well, if you got a high ankle sprain and you're still feeling the effects, why are you even going in for a layup? Because you know you're not going to have the explosion. You're not going to be able to jump. De'Aaron Fox usually isn't caught. I mean, OG's coming to get him. He makes a bad play. And Jerry Stackhouse, who knows a lot of basketball, told me, hey, when you're De'Aaron Fox, you're still thinking, I'm that player who can win the race to the basket, and I'm going to lay that ball in, and we're going to be up by 4 or whatever the point, okay? But here's the deal. The next thing, the defensive setup by Mitch Johnson was all wrong, backfired. That was a mess. He had and he should have played, and the capper to all those plays, the plays where he could have called timeout, plays where his defense was awful, the setup, didn't guard the inbounds, etc. He didn't play Dylan Harper enough at the end of games, and he rode De'Aaron Fox to the point it was just bad because De'Aaron Fox was awful. And when he's taking those shots in game 5, 3-point shots or whatever, he made a bunch of bad decisions. The shots weren't falling. Just a nightmare game. I think you have to move him. You just have to move him and then slide Dylan Harper in because he showed you he's ready. I know it's a small sample size, but guess what? On a guy like that, you don't need a big sample size. That's enough for me. The playoffs he had, and I know he struggled at the end of game 5. He missed a layup. That's what happened. No. 22. De'Aaron Fox was brought in to be the veteran, to be the adult in the room, and he totally failed at that. And I know, here's one thing people have to remember. He didn't have much of a playoff resume going in. He had that one series with Mike Brown in Sacramento, right? So, unfortunately, he wasn't – the moment killed him. He wasn't good in the moment, Gerald. So, listen, I think they're going to have to move him. He's got a big contract.
I was just about to say that.
I think there are teams, though. I can't name you any off the top of my head, but I think there may be teams that could bring him in, but they're in a little bit of a tough spot. But only a tough spot because of him. They have a future with Harper and Castle that's going to be one of the top backcourts in the NBA. And people want to talk about, for the next 8 to 10 years. Give me 4 years. Give me 4 or 5. I can't. Injuries in the NBA are the number one story, Gerald. I am not looking at, I want a guy, this guy's going to go good for 8 years, 10 years. I'm looking at a guy who's going to get good for me for 3, 4, 5 years.
Well, the only reason
then
why
you don't know. Then you don't know.
We don't know. Like, we don't know if the Spurs will be able to get back to the finals, right? We don't know how Wembanyama, if he develops that frame that's similar to Kevin Durant, or does he get the frame like Giannis? We don't know.
And the one offensive move he needs, because in the half court, he's very, very limited.
Yes.
He also is an injury guy who's had a blood clot.
Yes.
I mean, listen, there are no guarantees. I'm not going to tell you he's going to be Dan Marino going to one Super Bowl, but there ain't no guarantees here. We all know that because injuries in the NBA, Gerald, it drives you nuts. I mean, load management is one thing where guys are out, but guys going down to injuries, it just is on and constant. And this guy's got an Achilles, and this guy can't play Game 7. Never seen anything like it in the NBA. So no guarantees with the Spurs. And look at what happened to Oklahoma City. They had to play a lot of their season and a lot of the playoffs without Jalen Williams, their second best guy, right? And that killed them. That hurt them. So, I mean, we don't know. But they got to do something with De'Aaron Fox, and I think he kind of failed the test there. So how are they going to move him? Where are they going to move him to? Anybody's guess. But that is something that the Spurs need to look at big time. Besides getting Victor, get Mitch Johnson as an assistant coach who's been there before as a head coach maybe, and then get Victor something in the low post where when you need a basket in the half court, it's not a bunch of guys running around with their heads cut off playing hero ball. It's a guy you can take a 7-5 guy, get him in the box, get him to either score or get you 2 free throws.
Yeah.
They need that. Need those 2 things.
They definitely need it. And I tell you this, Mitch, I appreciate you, man, so much because the insight It is tremendous. Listen, your family, have a great Father's Day. Enjoy it.
And you as well. And the amazing thing about this stretch here, we didn't have nonsense stuff. We had no nonsense hour. That kind of
you know what? I could have gone on and on because I wanted to ask you about the whole the Trey Young situation, but that is some. I was thinking that if Trey Young decides he's not going to get that type of money somewhere else, but I mean, Washington, if they left Holden, De'Aaron Fox is there. But
there you go.
We have to do this again, Mitch. Yeah. Anytime. Listen, all the best. You, the family. I appreciate you.
And once again, Gerald, I feel good for you guys and other guys who have long-suffering Knick. Can't call you long-suffering Knick fans anymore, right?
No. But you were a part of this, so you need to enjoy this as well. There's enough for everybody to go around. It's been 53 years.
But who's counting? Right? Oh, my God. Thought it would never end.
It did.
And it did. So long, my friend. Have a great one, all right?
You do the same. One of the best in the business. Mitch Lawrence joining me.